The alarm went off at 6:30, like it always did, jarring me from whatever half-dream I was having. I slapped it off and lay there for a few seconds, just listening to the silence. The apartment was quiet, almost too quiet. I knew the drill by heart, no reason to waste time. I dragged myself out of bed, my feet hitting the cold floor, the only thing that told me it was actually morning. I went to the kitchen, pushed the button on the coffee machine. A low hum filled the air as the scent of brewed coffee wafted up. It was always the same, bitter, strong, exactly how I needed it. My phone buzzed, and I automatically checked the budget app, hoping there was something new. There wasn't. Another day, another dollar that barely stretched far enough. Bills were piling up, but that was normal. I'd get through it like I always did, tightening the belt a little more, just enough to make it until the next payday. I let out a breath, the weight of it settling into my chest. Not that I expected things to change. I grabbed the coffee, checked the clock. Time to go. I put on my shoes, grabbed my bag, and headed out the door. The city was waking up, the usual hum of traffic filling the air, people bustling, everyone with their own little routines. It was all so predictable, but that was fine. Predictability meant control, and I needed control more than anything. The subway ride was as packed as always, a sea of faces I'd never see again. I'd learned to tune it all out. It was safer that way. At work, I did my usual. More numbers, more emails, the same cycle. And as I walked out after my shift, I caught myself making a decision I hadn't thought about before. I walked over to the little kiosk on the corner, its neon sign flickering in the early evening light, the lottery ticket booth. I didn't know why I was drawn to it. Maybe it was because, for once, I could do something a little reckless without it hurting. A $2 ticket, a small indulgence, nothing more than a fleeting wish. I bought one, tucked it into my wallet, and didn't think twice. It wasn't a plan. It was just hope. The kind of hope you let slip out when everything else is too heavy to carry. I didn't make a big deal about my birthday. Never did. I didn't expect anyone else to either. Just another day, right? But as I sat on the couch in my sweatpants, takeout container in one hand, remote in the other, it felt like a reminder. The kind of reminder you get when you realize no one's thinking about you. Not really. The TV was on. Some mindless crime drama. The kind that doesn't make you think too hard. I wasn't really watching, just clicking through channels, trying to drown out the quiet. My phone buzzed next to me. A birthday message from Amanda, my best friend. She was probably at some bar with her boyfriend, celebrating her own life. She'd been working overtime to fix her perfect life while I was here, alone, eating cold Chinese food out of a plastic box. She'd probably think I was fine. Everyone did. I scrolled through my feed, flipping past a wedding, a baby shower, an engagement post, all things I had no part in, just more reminders that I was here, with no one to share any of it with. The weight of it settled on my chest, tight and uncomfortable. I could feel the loneliness creeping in, like it always did. Then I remembered the lottery ticket. The slip of paper was tucked away in my wallet, the only thing that had ever felt like it might give me a break. I pulled it out and checked the numbers. I didn't even think about it at first. I just did it. The app on my phone loaded the drawing, and I watched, almost on autopilot, the numbers flicking by. Then I froze. The numbers matched. I stared at the screen, blinking hard, like maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, I wasn't wrong. I had won. $1.4 million. I could hardly breathe. A strange, almost nauseating rush of excitement hit me. The weight of it was overwhelming. Too much. Too fast. I wasn't ready for it. Not like this. But then it hit me. Something colder. A flash of old memories, family asking for money. Promises made that were never kept. The thought of them, all of them, clawing for a piece of this, made my stomach turn. What if they all came out of the woodwork? What if they assumed I owed them something? They would. I knew they would. They always did. I looked at the ticket again, and suddenly I wanted to rip it up, throw it away. But I didn't. I couldn't. It was the closest thing to freedom I'd ever had. So I did the next best thing. I hid it, slipped the ticket back into the bottom of my wallet, buried it under some receipts, out of sight. I sat there for a long time, holding my phone, not really knowing what to do next. I couldn't tell anyone, not yet anyway, not even Amanda. She'd be happy for me, of course, but I knew it would come with strings, questions, expectations, and I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for them to see me any differently, to see me as someone they could lean on, or worse, someone they could take advantage of. So I did nothing. I let the moment pass, like it was just another small wish I'd let slip away. The quiet settled back over me, and I went back to my takeout. The TV droned on, but I couldn't focus. I was too busy thinking about what I'd just discovered, about the life I could build, or maybe the life I couldn't, if I wasn't careful. One step at a time. That's what I told myself. One step at a time. It wasn't like I didn't love my family, but I couldn't deny that every time they needed something, it was always me they turned to. Always me who had to help. They didn't even ask anymore. They just expected it. I thought about my parents, how they'd call up, sounding all concerned, asking for a little help here and there, and I'd always give it because what else was I supposed to do? They'd ask for loans, just a couple $100 to cover a bill or maybe help with the car payment, but it was never really a loan. Not once did they ever pay me back. There was one time, though, that stuck in my head. My mom called me up one evening, crying on the phone about how she was going to lose the house. She needed $1,000. It was supposed to be temporary, she said, just until she got her next check. I told her I'd help. I knew she'd never ask if she didn't really need it. So I gave it to her. And for a while, it felt good to do it. I felt like I was helping her keep it together. But then the next month came, and she called again, asking for more. No mention of the last $1,000. The worst part? She didn't even say thank you, like she had a right to it. I stopped expecting repayment from her a long time ago. If she couldn't be bothered to keep her word, why should I keep giving? But she still asked, always. Then there was Dorian, my younger brother. He'd gotten into trouble with the law a few times. Nothing too serious, just enough to make things complicated. He'd lose a job or get behind on rent, and guess who he called? Me, every time. It didn't matter that I was struggling just as much. He knew I would bail him out. It was like he'd learned that the first time he called me, and then it was just part of the routine. One time, he showed up at my apartment, drunk, asking for $200 to cover rent. I had the money, but that wasn't the point. He couldn't even look me in the eye, just told me he'd pay me back once he got another job. But he never did. And after that, I stopped expecting him to. Rhea, my older sister, wasn't much better. She was always the one with promises but no follow-through. She'd swear up and down she'd pay me back, or that she'd take care of something for me. But then it never happened. The last time she borrowed $500 from me, I was stupid enough to believe her. She said it was for a temporary thing, but it turned into a year-long excuse. She disappeared for months, popping back in only when she needed something else. I stopped answering her calls after a while. I remember thinking once that I must be a fool for letting it all happen. But I was the older sister. I was the responsible one. They had this way of making me feel guilty if I didn't help, like it was my job to make sure they were okay. I was the safety net, but the net always had holes in it. They never caught me when I needed them, just used me when they were falling. Aunt May was different. She wasn't like any of them. She never borrowed money, never made me feel like I owed her anything. It wasn't about what I could do for her. It was about what she could do for me. Without expectation, without strings. I remembered one Christmas, a few years ago. My parents had asked for money again, the usual thing, and I was feeling the weight of it all. But Aunt May didn't ask for anything. She didn't need anything. She gave me a gift that year, $500 just because. And she told me, in her quiet way, that I was doing enough, that I didn't have to be everything for everyone, that I deserved to breathe. She was the only one who didn't take from me. She gave. And that made all the difference. I thought about her as I stared at the lottery ticket in my hand. I'd won $1.4 million, but I knew deep down that no amount of money would change how my family saw me. They didn't care about the person I was. They cared about what I could give. It made me wonder if Aunt May would still love me the same if she knew about the ticket. She was the one person I knew would never ask for anything, never expect a handout, never turn me into a source of their stability. Maybe that was the real reason I was hiding the ticket. I wasn't afraid of losing money. I was afraid of losing the one person who saw me for who I really was. I couldn't do this alone. Not anymore. I made an appointment with George, a financial advisor I found through a friend of a friend. He came highly recommended, but that didn't make me feel any better. I still didn't know how to talk about any of this, how to explain that I had $1.4 million sitting in my wallet and that no one knew, not even my closest friend. I sat in his office, the walls lined with dark wood and framed degrees that didn't mean much to me right then. George was middle-aged, with a solid handshake and a face that told me he was used to dealing with people who needed serious help. And that's exactly how I felt, like I was sinking in deep water, and I had no idea which way was up. He started off with the basics, how the lottery win had impacted my taxes, what I'd need to do about the state and federal deductions, all the dry, technical stuff that made my head spin. I was barely listening, but I nodded, taking mental notes. But when he got into protecting the money, that's when I really started paying attention. You'll want to set up a trust, George said, his fingers clicking as he typed on his laptop. That way, the money stays out of the public eye. A trust shields you from having to disclose the win, keeps things low key. You don't want to be on the radar. I leaned forward, curiosity poking through the fog in my mind. A trust? How does that work? And how much does it cost? It's not cheap, George replied, looking up at me. But it's worth it. You put the money into the trust, and it's controlled by a trustee you appoint. You won't technically own the money anymore. The trust will. That keeps it away from creditors, keeps people from seeing your name in the papers. The more he explained, the more I understood. I'd have to be careful about how I access the money, too. No splurging on cars or fancy vacations. Nothing that screamed, "Hey, I'm suddenly rich." Low-risk investments, he continued, shifting his focus to a portfolio chart. No high-flying stocks, no risky business. You want steady growth, something that can support you long-term without drawing attention. You could live off the interest, let the principal grow. I sat back in my chair, the weight of it all pressing down on me. This was real, this was happening, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. The money could solve a lot of problems, but it could also create 1,000 more. What about mistakes? I asked, needing to know the ugly truths. What do most lottery winners do that screws them over? George leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen on the desk, like he was deciding whether to tell me something important or just skip the hard part. But then he spoke, quiet and serious. Tell the wrong person, and it's over, he said. You let the wrong person in, and it's not just about your finances anymore. It's about your peace of mind. People will come out of the woodwork, promising everything, wanting to be your best friend. But those people aren't in it for you. They're in it for what you can give them. I looked down at my hands, remembering the faces of my family, the people who always showed up when they needed something. I didn't want them to know. Not yet, not ever. Once you tell someone, you lose control, he added. And that's the hardest part. You can't take it back. People's expectations will change. Your life will never be the same. The more he talked, the clearer it became. I couldn't let anyone know, not even Aunt May. I wanted to believe she'd be different, but I couldn't take that risk, not with the way my family had always been. I straightened up in my chair, feeling a bit more grounded. So, no flashy changes, no big reveals. Exactly, George said. You keep things quiet. If you do it right, you can live off the interest, maybe make some changes in your life down the road, but for now, no one needs to know. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. It wasn't just about the money, it was about protecting myself, protecting my peace. When I walked out of his office, I felt like I was carrying a burden I wasn't sure I could bear. The money was still mine, but I wasn't allowed to enjoy it. Not yet. Not until I figured out how to keep it from breaking everything. I sat in my car, staring out the windshield, feeling trapped in a cage of my own making. The future I thought I'd build with this money. It seemed further away now. The dream was there, but it wasn't mine to grab. Not yet. Not unless I kept my life exactly the same. No flashy changes, just quiet, careful steps forward. Maybe it was safer that way, but it didn't feel like freedom. The more I thought about my family, the more I realized I couldn't trust any of them. At least not with this. I'd already been burned too many times. If they knew about the money, they'd all come running, but not because they cared about me. They'd see me as a safety net, a way out of their own messes. I couldn't let that happen. So I came up with a plan, a test. It wasn't about trapping anyone. It was about protecting myself. If I could see who would stand by me when I was really in need, I'd know who I could rely on. And if no one stepped up, I'd finally understand that I was on my own. I spent the next few days working on the story. I needed it to be believable, something that wouldn't raise suspicion. The last thing I wanted was for anyone to think I was playing some kind of game. So I made it simple. I'd lost my job. My company had been going under for months, and I'd been laid off last week. It wasn't completely a lie. I'd been struggling with work for a while, but the rest, the rent, the medical bills, the mounting stress, that was all fabricated. I told myself it wasn't a manipulation. It was just a way to see who would really be there when I needed help. Who would show up for me, no questions asked. I grabbed a notebook, sat down at my kitchen table, and started writing out the names of my family members. I'd be strategic about this. I needed to know how each person would respond. I knew my mother would be first, because she'd always been the one to act like the world was ending. I expected her to offer words of sympathy, but no real help. She never did. Next was my father, Martin. I could already hear the lecture in my head. He'd tell me how irresponsible I was, how I should have planned better. He'd probably offer a bit of advice, but not a cent. I didn't even expect him to acknowledge that I needed help at all. It would be about what I had done wrong. Then there was Ria. She'd probably make promises she couldn't keep, talk a good game about helping, but when push came to shove, I knew she wouldn't follow through. She was all talk, always had been. And Dorian? He'd ignore me. He'd make it sound like he couldn't be bothered, like my problems weren't his to fix. He always did that. I didn't even bother with the others. My cousins, distant relatives, they didn't matter. They had their own lives. This was about my immediate family, the ones who should have been the closest to me, who should have been the first to offer a hand. I wrote it all down, naming everyone and predicting how they'd react. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I just wanted to see who would offer help without expecting anything in return. I felt sick just writing it out, like I was crossing some kind of line. But I had to know. I had to understand. If I ever let anyone in, I couldn't risk being betrayed again. I couldn't let my money or my heart be used. The next day, I started making the calls. I picked up the phone, took a deep breath, and dialed my mother's number first. She picked up on the second ring. Elena? What's wrong, honey? Her voice was high, laced with concern. She always did that, always acted like the sky was falling when I had a problem. I lost my job, Mom, I said, keeping my voice steady. I need some help. I can't cover rent this month, and I've got some medical bills I didn't expect. It's $5,000, just to cover everything. There was silence on the other end, and I could feel her mind working. She'd always been good at pretending like she was listening, even when she wasn't. I'm so sorry, Elena, she finally said. But you know your father and I are in a tight spot too. Have you tried talking to Dorian or Ria? They might be able to help. I should have expected that. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung. The way she shrugged me off. The way she passed the responsibility to someone else. Okay, Mom, I said, trying to hide the hurt in my voice. I'll see what I can do. I hung up and wrote her response down in my notebook. No surprise there. I called Martin next. He didn't even let me finish before he started lecturing me. You should have been saving better, Elena, he said, his tone harsh. It's irresponsible to be in this situation. You're gonna have to figure it out yourself. Maybe look for another job, huh? I'd known that was coming. I just didn't know how to prepare for it. The sharpness in his voice made it feel like I was the one at fault, but I took a deep breath, said, Okay, Dad, thanks for your input, and hung up. I crossed him off the list too. The rest of the calls went about the same way. Ria offered me a place to stay, but not a penny. Dorian ignored me altogether, like I hadn't even spoken. The only person who didn't disappoint me was Aunt Mae. I hadn't called her yet, but I was almost afraid to. I didn't want her to feel like I was testing her, even though that's exactly what I was doing. I put my phone down, staring at the list of names and responses. There it was, right in front of me, my family, the ones who were supposed to care, and yet they couldn't even offer me a fraction of the help I needed. I realized something I'd known deep down but hadn't wanted to admit. The money wasn't just about freedom. It was about control. It was about keeping myself safe from them. If I was going to survive this, I had to keep it all locked up, just like my heart. The test had shown me one thing. I was truly on my own. I stared at my phone for a while before I made the next call. It wasn't that I didn't expect to be disappointed. I just didn't know how much more I could take. But I'd started this, so I had to see it through. I had to find out once and for all just how little support I really had. I dialed my mom first. I'd already anticipated what she'd say, but it still hit me in the gut. Mom, I really need some help. I started, trying to keep my voice steady. I lost my job and I'm behind on rent and medical bills. I need $5,000. Her tone was quick to shift to concern, but it wasn't real concern. It was the kind that came with a hint of guilt, like she knew she wouldn't be able to do anything. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry to hear that. But you know things are tight here too. Your father and I can barely make ends meet as it is. She sighed, like the weight of the world was on her. Have you tried Dorian? Or maybe Ria can help. She's always been good about, taking care of things. I had to bite my tongue to keep from saying anything sharp. I could already hear the excuse forming. She always told me to go to someone else. It was the same song, different verse. Okay, Mom, I said, my voice flat. I'll try them. I hung up without saying much more, staring at the phone like it had betrayed me. Of course she couldn't help. She never did. I could feel the disappointment pooling in my chest, heavier than before. Next, I called Martin, my father. I'd expected the lecture, but hearing it again still made me feel small. Elena, you really should have been more responsible, he said, like I'd done this to myself on purpose. I'm not sure what you expected, but I don't have $5,000 lying around to just give you. Maybe if you'd thought ahead, you wouldn't be in this mess. I wasn't even surprised by the words. I'd heard it all before. The world was always my fault. I've always tried to do the right thing, Dad, I said, keeping the edge out of my voice. I'm just asking for help now. You should have been smarter, he repeated, his voice growing sharper. No one's going to bail you out. You need to figure it out yourself. I didn't say anything more. It was pointless. I couldn't even be angry anymore, just resigned. I ended the call without a word. Ria was next. She was always the one who promised, but never came through. I wasn't sure why I even bothered. Ria, I really need help, I said, the words coming out like they had before. I'm behind on rent and medical bills. I need $5,000. She hesitated, then went into her usual routine. God, I'm so sorry, Elle, she said, her voice soft with sympathy, but lacking any real weight. That sucks. But things aren't great on my end either. I'm barely scraping by. You can always crash here if you need to, though. I've got the couch. That was Ria, always offering a place to stay, but never anything more. She couldn't help me financially, but she could offer me a space to sleep and feel sorry for me. I didn't need a couch. I needed real help. Thanks, Ria, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll think about it. I hung up, feeling the walls closing in. Dorian was next. I don't know why I bothered with him. He wouldn't even answer his phone. Not that I expected him to. The call rang a few times before going to voicemail. Hey, Dorian, it's me. I left a message, trying to sound like I wasn't already defeated. I need some help. I lost my job, and I'm behind on rent and medical bills. Can you help me out? It's $5,000. Please call me back. The voicemail clicked off, and I stared at the screen. I knew he wouldn't call back. I had nothing left to say to him. I tried one last call, this time to Brett. He wasn't exactly close family, but we'd been in touch recently. He'd always been a little more dependable. Or so I thought. Hey, Brett, it's Elena. I've got a situation here. I lost my job and I need $5,000 to cover some bills. Can you help me out? There was a pause. Then his voice came through, warm and easygoing like it always was. Of course I can help, he said, sounding relieved that I'd called. Let me check my schedule, and I'll get in touch with you. We can meet up tomorrow? I felt a small flicker of hope, but I knew better by now. The next day came, and Brett didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't do anything. I left him messages, but nothing. By the time I checked my phone later that evening, I saw a message from him. Something came up. Can't meet today. Sorry. Just like that, he disappeared. No explanation, no second chance. The calls were over. Each one, a reminder of how little my family really cared. I didn't want to be the one to admit it, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was alone in this. Completely and utterly alone. No one had stepped up. Not one person offered to help when I needed it most. It wasn't just the money. It was the complete lack of care, the absence of any real loyalty. And with that realization, something inside me snapped. I wasn't just protecting my money anymore. I was protecting myself. From them. From all of them. I put off calling Aunt May for as long as I could. I knew she would help, but I wasn't ready to face her. She was different from the others. Too kind, too understanding. I didn't want to lean on her. I didn't want to see her pity for me. But at the end of the day, she was the only one who might actually come through. So I picked up the phone. Her voice came through almost immediately, warm and familiar, like coming home. Elena, sweetheart, what's going on? You sound off. I swallowed, trying to get my words right. Hey, Aunt May, I need help. I lost my job, and I'm falling behind on rent and bills. I don't know where to turn, and I'm kind of in a mess here. There was no hesitation on her end, no judgment, no pity, just quiet understanding. Of course, honey. You know you can always count on me, she said. I don't care about the details. Just come by, and we'll figure it out. It was like she'd already decided. She wasn't waiting for my explanation. She trusted me, and that was enough for her. I felt a lump form in my throat as I thought about how easy it was for her to just be there. No conditions, no strings, just a simple offer to help. When I walked into her house later that evening, it felt different. I don't know how to explain it. Aunt May's home was always cozy, filled with the smell of tea and old books. But tonight it was something else, like peace was spilling out from the walls. It was the kind of place where, for once, I didn't feel like I had to hide anything. She made me sit at the kitchen table while she poured tea, steadying my shaking hands. She didn't ask questions, she just listened. "I'm so sorry, Aunt May. I didn't want to bother you with this," I said, feeling embarrassed. "I've been trying to keep it together." She shook her head, the way she always did when I apologized for something she thought was silly. "Don't you ever apologize for needing help," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You're family, and family takes care of family, no matter what." Then, without warning, she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. She slid it across the table toward me. "Here, take it," she said, her eyes kind but unyielding. "It's $2,000. You can use it for rent or bills, whatever you need, and don't you dare worry about paying it back." I blinked at the money, feeling a rush of guilt and gratitude mixed together in a tight knot in my chest. "Aunt May, I can't take this," I stammered, already knowing I wouldn't be able to return it. "I'll figure something out. I don't want to owe you." She smiled, but it wasn't pitying. It was understanding. "You're not owing me anything. You're my family. If I can help, I will. No strings attached. And if you ever need more, don't hesitate to ask." I took the envelope, my fingers brushing hers as I did. It felt like love, not charity. Like she wasn't just giving me money, she was offering a lifeline. I had never felt that from anyone else in my family. "I don't even know what to say," I whispered, my voice shaking a little. "You don't have to say anything," she replied, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "Just take care of yourself, Elena. That's all I need." And just like that, I realized how different Aunt May was from everyone else. She wasn't expecting anything in return. She didn't care what I had or didn't have. She cared about me, about who I was, not what I could give her. I left her house that night with the envelope in my pocket, my heart lighter than it had been in days. But the feeling wasn't just about the money. It was about how it was given. It wasn't a loan. It wasn't a handout with conditions. It was an act of love. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't alone. As I drove home, I made a decision. I couldn't tell Aunt May about the lottery. Not yet. It wasn't the money that mattered anymore. It was the fact that she saw me for who I was and not what I could offer. I wasn't ready to change things yet. Maybe I never would be. But I knew one thing for sure. This, what Aunt May had given me, was what real support looked like. And I would keep the rest of it hidden, for now. The money wasn't the answer. It was the people who truly cared. And right now, I wasn't about to risk that. I couldn't keep the secret anymore. The truth weighed on me in a way that no one else would ever understand, not even Aunt May. But she was the only person I could trust with it. The only person who had been there without asking for anything in return. The only one who had shown me what real support looked like. And yet, I'd been hiding something from her. I had to tell her. I called her up, trying to sound casual, though my heart was racing. "Hey, Aunt May, you free for some tea later?" "I'd love that, sweetie. How about 3 o'clock?" "Perfect," I said, trying to steady my breath. "I'll see you then." When she arrived, she brought with her the same warmth, the same quiet comfort she always did. The smell of her perfume, the soft rustle of her clothes as she moved through the kitchen. It was all so familiar, so comforting. But today, there was something different in the air. We sat down at the table, the tea steaming between us. I couldn't look her in the eye at first. I stirred my cup, pretending that the movement would somehow make this easier, but I knew it wouldn't. Finally, I spoke. "Aunt May, I need to tell you something. I've been lying to you. Not intentionally, but I've been hiding the truth." She didn't interrupt, just waited, her gaze steady and patient. I could feel her watching me, but she never pushed. "I didn't lose my job. I didn't need $5,000 for bills. It was all a lie. A test." Her eyebrows furrowed slightly, but that was the extent of her reaction. She didn't look disappointed, just puzzled, like she was waiting for the rest of the story. I hesitated, my throat tight. I wanted to see who would help me, who would actually be there when I needed it. I wanted to see who I could trust, and who would just take from me. "And Aunt May, you're the only one who actually came through. You're the only one who didn't make me feel like a burden." Her expression softened, but there was no judgment, only understanding. "I'm sorry," I added quickly. "I didn't want to hurt you. I had to know. I needed to know that there was someone who wasn't going to use me. She reached out, placing her hand over mine. Elena, I'm not angry at you. I'm just relieved. Relieved that you finally found the clarity you needed. I felt a lump in my throat, and tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. You've always been there for me, I said, my voice shaking. You're the only one who's never asked for anything. I wanted to believe that maybe someone else could be like you, but the truth is, they never were. She smiled, that warm, knowing smile that always made me feel like everything would be okay. Money does strange things to people, honey. It reveals the truth, but sometimes that truth is ugly. I blinked, unsure of what she meant at first. She kept speaking, her voice steady, like she was talking about something she'd seen before. A long time ago, I invested in a small business. A friend of mine had this great idea, and I thought I could help. I put in a good chunk of money, trusting him, believing in his vision. But it didn't work out. The business failed, and I lost everything I put in. Her hand tightened around mine. I was devastated, not just because I lost the money, but because I learned something. That man I trusted, the one I thought was a friend, turned out to be nothing but a user. He took my money, but when things went wrong, he disappeared. I never saw him again. I sat back, processing her words. She'd trusted someone, given them everything she had, and still been left with nothing. I felt a new weight in my chest, a deeper understanding of what money could do to people. It's hard, she said softly. You want to believe that people will care about you for who you are, not for what you can give them. But money makes it complicated. It always does. I nodded, the weight of her words settling into me. I understood now. Money could change everything, or nothing, depending on who you were. It could bring out the worst in people, or it could show you who was really there for you. Aunt May, I don't know what to do with all of this, I admitted. I've won $1.4 million, and I don't want it to change me. I don't want to be like the people who always come to me when they need something, but never give anything in return. She squeezed my hand. It's not the money that defines you, Elena. It's what you do with it. You can use it to build a life for yourself, to protect your future. But don't let it change who you are. Don't let it change how you see the people who really love you. Her words settled into me, deeper than anything else. The money wasn't the problem. The problem was how I allowed it to affect the way I saw myself and the way I saw others. I don't think I'm ready to tell anyone about the win, I said quietly. Not yet. You don't have to tell anyone, Aunt May said with a soft smile. It's yours to do with as you wish. Just remember to stay true to yourself. And remember who's really there when it matters. I nodded, finally understanding. It wasn't about the money. It was about the people who stood by you when you didn't have anything left to give. I realized then that Aunt May was more than just a family member. She was my anchor, the one person I could trust. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground again. The lottery didn't change that. It never could. I told myself I was ready. This wasn't going to be easy, but it was time to set the record straight. I couldn't keep letting them think I was their safety net, the one who would always pick up the pieces when everything fell apart. I wasn't that person anymore. Not today. I called everyone up, keeping it casual. Hey, I'm having a small get-together this weekend. Just a little hangout. Nothing big. You all should come by. Of course, they all showed up. It was like they were always there when they thought I needed them to be, when it was convenient. I kept the tone light when they arrived, pretending everything was fine, like I wasn't about to change everything between us. But I had to do this. We all gathered in the living room, a mixture of awkwardness and expectation hanging in the air. They knew I'd been struggling, but none of them truly cared about the reasons. It was always about what I could give. So, I started, my voice steady. I just wanted to let you all know that I'm doing fine. I found a new job and things are looking up. I watched their faces, trying to gauge their reactions. I saw Ria's eyebrows raise first, like she couldn't figure out if I was joking. Wait, really? She asked, looking almost disappointed that I wasn't in crisis anymore. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice even. I don't need anyone's help anymore. The room went quiet for a moment. Then my mom, always the first to speak when things got uncomfortable, cleared her throat. Well, that's great, honey, really great, she said, but there was an edge to her voice, something that sounded almost resentful. But if you did need help, you know we'd be there for you, right? Actually, I said, glancing at her, I don't think I want to be your fallback anymore. I'm done being the one you rely on to fix everything. It's not fair, and it's not how it's supposed to be. There was a shift in the room, like the air had gotten thicker. Martin didn't even look at me. He just shook his head and muttered under his breath. "You've got to be kidding," he said. "So, now that you've found a new job, we're not good enough to help you? You're acting like you're above us now, like you can just walk away from this family when you're doing better." I felt the sting of his words, but it didn't hurt the way it used to. It didn't feel like a blow to my chest anymore. This was the same thing he always said, the same manipulation. "I'm not walking away," I replied, my voice firmer now. "I'm just not going to be the one who always bails everyone out when things get tough. I'm done carrying everyone's weight." Dorian, who had been lounging on the couch the whole time, finally spoke up. "Wow, you're really going all high and mighty now, huh? Just because you've got a new job doesn't mean you're better than us." I wasn't surprised. Of course, Dorian would make it about me changing, about me being the one at fault. He wouldn't take responsibility for anything, not even his own laziness. "No one's saying I'm better than you, Dorian. I'm just saying I'm not your bank anymore. If you need help, figure it out yourself." Rhea shook her head, looking like she was trying to process this. "I don't get it," she said. "You've always helped us. You can't just stop." "I'm not stopping, Rhea," I said, holding her gaze. "I'm just saying no. I'm done being the one everyone expects to fix their problems. You've all had your chances." There was a silence, and I could feel the tension between us building, thick and heavy. None of them said anything for a long moment, probably trying to figure out how to react. They all looked like they had been caught off guard, like they never expected me to say no. But I wasn't backing down. Not this time. Finally, Aunt May, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. She hadn't said a word through all of this, but now she met my eyes, her expression calm, even peaceful. "I think that's enough for today," she said, her voice soft but steady. "You've said what you needed to say, Elena." I looked at her, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over me. She was the only one who had stayed quiet, not jumping in to defend the others or make excuses. She was the only one who understood. "Thanks, Aunt May," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I couldn't keep letting them think I was their safety net." She nodded, her gaze gentle. "You've got to take care of yourself first. No one else is going to do it for you." One by one, the others left. They didn't say much, just awkward goodbyes and excuses to be somewhere else. When the door shut behind them, Aunt May stayed. She didn't ask questions, didn't make a big deal of it. She just sat with me, quietly, offering her presence in a way that felt like everything I needed. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't just the one who kept everyone together. I wasn't the one they depended on anymore. And for the first time in my life, I felt empowered. I was finally free. A year had passed since that night with my family. It felt like a lifetime ago. I was sitting in my small garden, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting a soft golden light over the flowers I'd spent months tending. My house wasn't big, but it was mine. And for the first time, it felt like a home. It was quiet, peaceful, nothing like the chaos that used to fill my life. The money I'd won in the lottery had changed everything, but not in the way I thought it would. I hadn't used it for some extravagant lifestyle. I'd used it to build something real, something meaningful. I'd started a nonprofit organization, one dedicated to helping seniors who couldn't afford their medical bills or even their basic needs. I'd seen too many older people in my community fall through the cracks, ignored and forgotten by a system that didn't care. So I built a small team, and we started making a difference. It wasn't huge, not yet, but it was real. And that felt good. Aunt May had moved into a cozy little house not far from mine. It was smaller than her last place, but it was perfect for her. I helped with the down payment, made sure she was comfortable. She deserved it. She'd always been there for me, and I wanted to make sure she had the peace she'd given me. We'd spent many afternoons together, sipping tea on the porch, talking about life. She never asked about my family, never pushed for details. She just offered quiet support, like she always had. My relationship with my family hadn't improved. I'd seen them a few times over the months, but the distance was there, unspoken but clear. I still helped, but I did it from a distance. Anonymous donations, helping when I could without getting tangled in their expectations. They didn't deserve to know what I had now, not after everything that had happened. I thought about them sometimes, but mostly, I thought about what I'd learned. The clarity I'd gained from the lottery wasn't about money. It was about understanding who truly cared for me, who I could count on, and who would only take. I took a deep breath and let the quiet settle around me. The wind rustled through the leaves, and I smiled to myself. Is everything okay out here, honey? Aunt May's voice called out from the door, her familiar tone as comforting as ever. I turned to see her standing there, a warm smile on her face. She'd always known when I was lost in thought. Yeah, just thinking, I said, patting the chair next to me. Come sit with me for a minute. She joined me without hesitation, settling into the chair with a contented sigh. Her presence filled the space between us, like always. You're looking happy, she said, her eyes twinkling. And peaceful. I am, I said, looking out at the garden. I've got everything I need right here. She reached over, squeezing my hand, her fingers warm and steady. I'm glad, Elena. You deserve it. I've always known you'd find your way. It just took you a little longer to realize it. I nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. The truth was, I wasn't just okay. I was thriving. I had my own life now, my own peace. And I had Aunt May, the one person who had always been there for me, who had never asked for anything other than my happiness. As the sun set behind us, we sat in silence, watching the sky change from gold to purple, the stars beginning to peek through. There was no need for words, just the understanding that sometimes the most important things in life weren't about what you had, but who you had beside you. And as I looked at Aunt May, I realized that she was the one who had shown me what real support looked like, what real love felt like. It wasn't about money or what people could do for you. It was about the quiet moments, the ones when you didn't need to say anything at all. I didn't need my family to understand. I didn't need them to be anything they weren't. I had everything I needed right here. With Aunt May by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next.